Schönen Abend. I believe actually the topic of like living and working situation of young artists is a very crucial one, especially against the backdrop of the ongoing pandemics and the fragilization that it provoked on the life of the most precarious people of our society, among them artists and especially young artists. So a remark beforehand, when I speak about young artists, I obviously don't mean any kind of a biological age, but I'm speaking about artists who are at the beginning of their career, and I think this is the way we will have it tonight with our guests in the discussion. Our conversation, Survive, Subsist and Resist, will revolve around the precarious living and working conditions young artists are facing nowadays, the structural and conjectural reasons lying behind the situation, and the improvements that should occur on institutional as well as societal levels. My name is Anke. I'm curator at Kunsthalle Wien, and I had the great pleasure to work together with the artists of Handspells Kunsthalle Wien Prize exhibition in 2021, in the framework of which this event tonight takes place. Handspells, the exhibition that is actually beginning already in the shop and actually going through the whole tour, is feature 8 artists from both Viennese academies, the Academy of Fine Arts as well as the Academy of Applied Arts, and who were granted the Kunsthalle Wien Prize by a 7-headed jury in June 2021 for their diploma work, but also for their artistic production so far. The Kunsthalle Wien Prize is an annual prize jointly organized by both previously mentioned Viennese academies and by Kunsthalle Vienna since 2014. Its goal is to punctually support young artists on their ways at the end of their studies, helping them to bridge academia and the professional art world. For the first time this year, the prize exhibition has been extended to a larger selection of artists in order to represent a wider spectrum of artistic positions among the graduates. The 8 winners got a participation in a group show organized at Kunsthalle Wien. Among them, 2 winners got on top a €3,000 money prize thanks to our sponsors Decotrend and Gertraud and Dieter Bogner. Gathering in one exhibition 8 artists from the same generation who have lived in the same city for some time is an occasion to offer an insight into the young contemporary artistic scene and to gain insight into what they are moved by, interested in, and stand for. The artists presented in Handspells Kunsthalle Wien Prize Exhibition 2021 are Diana Barbozachil, Cho Beom-Siok, Jojo Gronostay, Annie Gurashvili, Lukas Kaufmann, Nora Severios, Anna Spanlang, who is here tonight, and Tsao, who is also here tonight. So, yeah, a little bit about the exhibition Handspells, and then about we'll give a short introduction about like the topic of tonight evening before presenting our guests. So the exhibition Handspells, whose title is Playing with the Viewer Expectations, is not primarily about witchcraft. Rather, the works presented reenact or inquire simple, mundane, sometimes repetitive gestures, techniques or habits as they appear in the realms of work, of creation, of craft, and in a wide range of productive but also reproductive activities, underscoring their creative and transformative effects on the environment, on bodies, and on imaginaries, becoming hence sometimes magic. Holding, scratching, making, drawing, writing, folding, weaving, stroking, touching, but also reading with fingers, speaking with hands, are gestures crossing the artworks more or less literally, more or less visible. These gestures affect matter. They transform surfaces into interfaces. They re-establish knowledge through contact. They privilege touch over vision. These gestures also reconnect bodies to other bodies and help repairing damaged connections or inventing new ones beyond domination, extraction, or mere service. Domination, extraction, or service, 3 modes of relations that create, on one side at least, precarity. Precarity is a material or immaterial insecurity that comes from a certain type of alienation, a dependency on something beyond one's authority, often a system incapable of providing care and support. For feminist and literary theorist Judith Butler, quote, Precarity designates that politically induced condition in which certain populations suffer from failing social and economic networks of support and become differentially exposed to injury, violence, and death. Such populations are at heightened risk of disease, poverty, starvation, displacement, and of exposure to violence without protection." End of quote. Against a background of austerity, decreasing public support, increasing privatization, and disappearing political or unionist representation, to be a young artist today is, more often than not, to be in a state of precariousness, to live with an insecure present and an unforeseeable future due to unstable and exploitative labor relations. And indeed, to be a young artist today implies a manifold alienation. In the absence of familial support, it means first of all to pursue a bread job, of often low-waged, often not connected to the art world, trying to keep it as less time-consuming as possible in order to have time to work artistically. At the same time, to be young artist today means to look for all kinds of opportunities in the art world, be they participations to exhibitions, to discussions, like tonight, applications to open calls, to prizes, to scholarships and other funding possibilities, disregarding the working conditions they impose, such as fluid working hours, high levels of mobility, hyper-communication and flexibility, bad wages or no wages at all, and lack of social benefits. Finally, to be a young artist today does not mean the same for everybody. When Butler talks about precarity, she invokes the genderqueer and the racialized, and the differential experiences of precarity according to the race, the gender, the class, and the sexual orientation. Intersectional discrimination interacts with specific labor characteristics of the art system. To speak about this very important, crucial, and not only depressing topics, it's my great pleasure to welcome 5 guests in alphabetical order. Sheri Avraham is an artist, curator, and theater maker. Hello, Sheri. She currently works as curator at The Arts, a project office for diversity and urban dialogue. She is a board member of the Interessensgemeinschaft Bildende Künste and works together with the Tiroler Künstlerinnenschaft on the realization of fair pay remuneration for visual artists. Sheri considers herself as a translator between theory and practice, between classes, religions, geographies, and generations. Johan Frederik Hartle, danke, is rector of the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, where his responsibilities comprise research, academia, and international issues, as well as human resources and finances. Previously, he was interim rector at the Karlsruhe University of Arts and Design. Throughout his career, he held teaching positions at international academies in art and media theory, art philosophy, and cultural philosophy. Johan Hartle's publications explore positions in contemporary art, institutional art theories, political aesthetics, and the legacy of Red Vienna. Anke Schad-Spindler, danke auch, has been researching cultural policy, cultural management, and cultural education since 2006. Since 2020, she has been working as a postdoctorate research associate on the project Agonistic Cultural Policy, Agonat, Case Studies on the Conflictual Transformation of Cultural Quarters. Since 2017, she has been working as a freelance researcher, evaluator, and process facilitator for clients such as the Goethe Institute. In 2019, Anke was appointed to the Expert Council on Cultural Diversity of the Austrian UNESCO Commission. Anke will guide us through the discussion tonight as an expert, as a moderator. Thanks for that already. Anna Spanlang studied video and video installation, as well as art and digital media with Dorit Magreiter and Constanze Rum at the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, as well as at the CENART in Mexico City. She completed her diploma in June 2021. She is a member of Yuki, FC Gloria, Mala Sirena, and Green Scream. At the Diagonale 2022 in Graz, Anna won the Best Prize for Innovative Film. Her precisely edited video works seek to limn the poetics of the ordinary, while underscoring the political dimension of everyday life in which community, friendship, care, and feminism are driving forces. And our last guest, Tsao, obtained her BFA in Taipei, In 2021, she completed her master's degree at the Transarts Department of the University of Applied Arts, Vienna, under the supervision of Roman Pfeffer and Katrin Romberg. She will have a first solo show at ECHO, which will open on June the 9th. The 9th or the 19th? The 9th, and we hope to see you there. It's not the first solo show in Vienna? In that space? Okay, sorry. It's the very new information I just got tonight, so it was not precise enough. I'm sorry for that. No, of course, you had at Porgy and Bess, you had at several spaces already. Sorry. Yeah, sure. Navigating between art historical references and a technology-driven post-human aesthetics, Chin's films, sculptural and ceramic objects, overexpose the racist, heteronormative and exploitative biases for grounding Western art history and cultural production. So the panel discussion will be structured in 3 moments. Sheri, Avraham, Spanlang and Tsao will speak about their lived experience, speak or give an input in the form of performance, focusing on the financial struggles and or discriminations they had to face, and on the strategies they found to cope actually with a precarious living situation. Afterwards, Anke Schad-Spindler will contextualize and analyze the working and living conditions young artists are faced with before opening the conversation with Johan Hartle and the other guests. After the conversation, there will be, of course, Q&As. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for having accepted the invitation and enjoyed the conversation.
It's on. You need to work in order to live. 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 I have 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 to learn in order to work. 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 I have to learn how to learn. 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 I have to learn. I have to learn. I have to learn how to learn. I have to work in order 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 to learn. And I have to work in order to learn. I have to learn to talk in order to work. I have to learn how to talk in order to work. I have to save. 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 I have to save, 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 I have to, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine, 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 I'm going to be fine. I have to work on my look in order to be heard. I have to work on my look in order to be heard. I have to work on my look in order to be heard. I have to be a man in order to be listened to. I have to be a man in order that someone would listen to me. I have to be a man in order to be heard. I'm getting old, I'm getting old, I'm getting old, I'm getting old, I'm getting old. I have to save, 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 I have to save. I don't need much sleep, 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 I don't need much, I don't need much, I don't need much sleep, I don't need much sleep, I don't need much sleep, I don't need. Healthy food is overrated. 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 I have to save. 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 I save. I'm going to be fine. 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 I'm doing okay. 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 I'm okay, 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 okay. I'm doing fine, 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 I'm doing fine. It's a very short version of a little bit longer performance. I thought it would be a little bit interesting input to get us all to a bit softer space, and actually maybe as an offer not to see whatever we are communicating today as a depressive. There are very sad and depressive, but maybe wishing to, as the invitation was as well asking, to think about strategies and possibilities of how we can create change in all of our life, working conditions, and life in general.
Thank you very much, Sheri. I don't know who's next, actually. You sort of... who to start?
I can. Yeah, maybe Jin and me have like a conversation about how, because we are both, no, we are not students anymore, but we both went to art academies but had different ways of, while doing art.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult after graduate, especially because we lost the studio and all the equipment access. So it's like really tough years, I think, after graduation. And it's already tough as a young artist, and it's 10 times tough also as a foreigner in this country, that I don't have so much opportunity. Even I work 10 times harder, I get 10 times less opportunity still. And when I was studying also, the case of Angewandte is I cannot apply most of the scholarships. It's only for European. So it was super difficult, and the visa is always about money, so the financial thing is very brutal for me, direct affect me. And we just had a conversation, and I just know if I want to apply artist visa, which only for 1 year, I need to prove I earn around 2,000 a month. It just fucked my mind now, because who I don't know who around my age or the people just graduate from school can earn from their art 2,000 a month. So this is
2,000 is like a number because to prepare for tonight, I was also thinking about this whole time that I have been a student and now I'm not anymore. But how did I when I went to art school? I just I had several jobs which you could not have because I'm born here. So I'm and I grew up with this attitude of if you want to participate somehow in this society, you can earn it through work. So if you work, that's also I think something very Austrian. People always say you work. If you work more, then you get more money and so on. Like this Leistungsgesellschaft. It's also a lot in the politics.
That's not true, though.
And yeah, but for Austrians it's true. It's or not true, but it's a reality I experience also with a lot of friends that didn't start studying. They started going to find a job right after school, and I think they will get at least more pension, retirement money, than I will ever get, because they have so many years of where they were employed. But they also just have this. I mean, they live in this employment world, and I think arts for them is not there anyway. So, but I when I thought of what did I do to survive? Me as born in Upper Austria, having parents who are not you would probably call them working class parents. So none of my relatives or family, they did not study before. So my sister, my brother, my cousins, we were the first who went to academics. So there was not a lot of support theoretically, because nobody knew how that worked, but fortunately you have friends who are in similar situations, and you just ask each other and help each other and get your way through this system. Because I speak German and everything's in German, so it's easy for me as a born in Austria person to be able to study, although I'm not from like an academics family and like we're an artist family. So you can make your way, but I see it's a huge difference when you're not born in Austria, when you not have the Austrian citizenship, and when you're not socialized in this country. So yeah, all my Barbies, when I was playing with Barbies when I was a child, already had like several jobs. I knew that as a child that I will not have this one job where I will be happy for like 40 years. But that's how I grew up, like how my parents like also grew up. They started working in one job and did that for the rest of their life, like not my mom, but my dad. But so I knew that I will not have this like 1 40-hour job for like my whole life. I didn't want to have that. But also like after art school, it's also not super sure that you can survive from what you studied and what you like made those whole years.
I'm pretty just gambling, basically. I mean, yeah, I mean, because also Israeli visa is such a bullshit in Austria. Like, it's made my situation super hard, even just to find a small job with my visa is just almost not possible, because even the student visa is allowed to work 20 hours a week. I still need to send my document to RMS. It takes them 1 month to give me the permission. So of course, no one is going to take the only special people, I suppose, will take foreigner and want to wait 1 month and deal with RMS. And now I graduate, then my visa then will direct associate with my work. So it's not just about I can work probably 10 hours a week to part-time job and support myself to do some art. I need to have a full-time job. And then I don't know who can do full-time job and doing art at the same time. I think it's not really possible. Yeah. And I think like for young artists especially is also the economic structure is very different, I think, for sure, compared with even 5-10 years ago. And I don't know, like the art school never give a proper education, or probably people don't know what happened outside the art school. So people have most of students I know, they don't have the knowledge how to deal with their financial situation as an artist. So most of people, they graduate and they realize it's actually so expensive to produce and take so much time. So a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they still keep doing some small stuff, but if the people want to be a full-time artist, is I guess also gambling, or people from privileged family, I suppose, because otherwise it's just not possible.
Yeah, with the money thing, because I think I was lucky because my mom used to work in a bank, and so she taught me never to have debts, and I got Taschengeld really early, to have everything under control. But now she would never work in a bank again, she said. But I think from this on, I was educated in a way that I always, but my first job was in in some company. They do things for farmers, and my first job was to create the invitations, the wedding invitations of my boss, and that was not actually what I wanted to do, but that was
the wedding invitation.
Yes, the wedding invitation. I should design it because I was in a design school after Hauptschule, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna have some nice things to do, but that was it.
Is there a funeral invitation as well?
There's also funeral invitation, but I think there's this one. Yeah, it was a wedding invitation,
okay,
but at that time I didn't like it. And then there was I don't know, to earn money. My parents always said you have yeah, you have to work. So like that's of course a different situation because I could work, but also one thing that I learned very early is you have to know people, and if your parents know people, then it's easier for you to get somewhere. And if your parents don't know people, you are, well, you do fry fries at the Welser Volksfest, which I also did, which is also part of my, you see it in my diploma very shortly, to buy like a MacBook. So I was always advised to, if you want to have something, you have to work for it. And that's of course a different situation because I, as a born in Austria person, just could do that because for me it was possible to do it. But the jobs that I did were not artistic or like in like an artistic context at all until I started leaving the house from my parents and moved to Vienna, where I could choose where to work and find different jobs.
Are you still working like some job at the moment?
Yes, many jobs.
Okay. Sounds like expected.
But, no, like for example, I work with Katrina Daschner, an artist who has an exhibition here in 3 weeks. I think in 1 month is the opening in June, and I work with her for almost 10 years now, I think. So that's somehow a continuity. It's also not the very best salary because we know that in the arts the salaries are just not as high, although there is I think we will get there later to fair pay and everything. And I have worked in different fields like theater, movie, but with Katrina it's like a continuity, and that's a good thing about it because I know almost like every year we're going to shoot something, so almost every year I'm going to have a certain amount of income, and so yeah, I still work with her, but I also right now I can say also already no to jobs like that I don't want to do, but it's I see that it's like being born and raised here is like the only time I didn't work besides my studies was actually in Mexico City when I did my exchange semester. Yeah, because I didn't get money. I didn't get money funding. There was some problem, but I didn't work. Yeah, I lived from my salaries. Savings, not salaries.
So thank you very much to both of you for giving us some insight already, some very intimate and personal, some of them into your lives as artists. And in my preparation, I was kind of torn between the reason we assemble, which is that you won this prize and you are represented here in Kunsthalle. I think it's a reason to celebrate. And the topic. So it's quite hard today to hold this space for a celebration of achievement and also acknowledge that there's ambiguity and also there are things that are really hard and things that just aren't right. So as a researcher in cultural policy, I was asked to contribute some insight from research on the situation of emerging artists. And in contrast to reading the Handspells, there's this idea of scientific methods to find out the real picture, kind of the facts. So imagine if you explain to a kid a globe and you hold it and you turn it and you say, you know, this little schnitzel-shaped thing, this is Austria and here is Vienna. And the kid goes, so where am I? And that's what happens with facts sometimes, you know. It's really a bird's view on statistics. And eventually, as artists, you also know that it's all about perspective and scale. So is there actually such a thing as the situation of the artist? The Austrian Artist Social Insurance Fund Act, Künstlersozialversicherungsgesetz, defines an artist as a person who creates work of art within the framework of artistic activity, which is kind of a rose is a rose is a rose. So the question is more, who gets accepted, acknowledged and valued as artists? And there's variety, and you can be a TikTok artist or a gallery artist, and best you do both. So despite this quest for adaptability and flexibility, there are orders in place that place you as an artist. For example, arts universities. So who's in these spaces? You best know probably, but I did some research on the numbers, and according to a study on arts universities in Austria commissioned by the Ministry of Education Research in 2019, the findings point out what you already mentioned, that students are predominantly from upper social classes, and the report finds this particularly striking at the Viennese arts universities. So we have to ask who is equipped to even enter these institutions. Now, it's also a given that arts unis are particularly international. Around 50% of students at the Academy and the Angewandte have a foreign background, yet a third of them are actually the Lenas and Jonases and Ankes from Germany. So, how many enter the job market? Around 1,500 young artists of all disciplines leave with a degree through the heavily wooden doors of these prestigious institutions. And where do those highly capable young artists unfold their capacities? So be warned, what follows is the sad narrative, and you're actually quite the wrong audience to hear it. So, according to the Absolventinnenbefragung of the Akademie der Bildenden Künste, they actually tracked the careers between 2000 and 2018, which is quite a good thing to do, I think. And the greatest challenge are the precarious working conditions. So the income of 2/3 of respondents is below the average income in Austria, and it's endurance, self-confidence that helps you to survive in the professional field. And beyond that, there's also a significant gender pay gap. Nevertheless, around 80% of the graduates are working in study-related fields. And this corresponds with findings of the study on the social situation of artists of 2018. And this is really, really incredibile, because the median income is 5,000 euro a year, 5,000, and still women earn 25% less. So how is this even possible? I mean, something's really clearly not right, yeah? And last but not least, it is also necessary, what Shin mentioned, her personal story, that foreigners face other obstacles. For example, to be eligible for this Niederlassungsbewilligung as a Künstler, you have to prove that you work in artistic creation and that you make an income and are able to sustain a living. And there's even a margin that you mentioned. So what about when you come, for example, from a country where the exact same thing, doing artistic work, is actually putting you at risk? So even if we're here in Austria, we have to keep in mind that we're part also of a global community. And I recently spoke to a researcher working for Free Muse. They're an NGO that collects data on artists at risks. And their report lists 215 artists that are imprisoned or detained globally, and most of them allegedly for criticizing their governments for various reasons. Is it to call out environmental injustices or corruption or LGBTQI issues, or because they are women? And the pandemic, apart from worsening the economic situation everywhere, maybe we'll get to that also later on, was a trigger obviously for these cases, because there were even more reason to silence artists. And we are yet to see the full economic impact as well. So as much as a discussion of economic factors is needed, let us not forget about the risks that artists face and their importance as voices for freedom of expression and human rights, and democracy as our collective global goods and causes. So there are many questions to ask, you know. How are talent and qualification valued in a country that draws capital from the Klimts and Mozarts? How important life decisions on reproductive rights, etc., partner choices are affected from being an artist? But more importantly, I think, who actually cares and what can be done and how to take care? And also, what about this strange intersectionality of both being in a privileged position and also being subject to discrimination? So I'm looking forward to the discussion, and maybe I start with you, Johan. You know, you're working for an arts university, and I challenged you on some figures and statistics already. How would you say, in what way does the arts education system prepare young people as artists? What are the support structures in place, and also what are the obstacles they face?
Okay, these are many and big questions, and I have many and big answers, and small answers too. First thing, I was wondering, as we were introduced, and it was a very kind and friendly introduction, but basically we were introduced by, you know, the degree to which we have managed to accumulate human capital. Yeah, so there's some ambiguity. Or my office did. And I think there's some. Well, it's obvious what is ambiguous about this, but it would be interesting to have an introduction that goes like, has done this and this and that, but despite that is interesting for a discussion because, yeah, so that would be an interesting opening. Second thing, I think there are historical and institutional reasons why we have this somewhat romantic idea of the precarious artist. And I think it is important to be aware of these reasons, to not just be fighting against windmills, but also to know to which extent art institutions like ourselves, like ours, is also parasitically depending on certain historically grown understandings of art. In the romantic understanding, of course, you have the idea that, you know, the madman genius artist has something like a self-made outside perspective on reality and thereby, you know, creates its own autonomous whatever, yeah? That is something that is deeply inscribed into, you know, the art market, the institutional situation, etc. And it's good to be critical of this. I'm also thinking of two legitimatory strategies at two, you know, leading art schools in Central Europe. One of them having published a book called Survival Rate 4%, which alludes to the idea of how many, you know, art students manage to, after graduating, survive on their artistic production alone, yeah, to really being artists and not something else. And 4% is rather much, yeah, unfortunately. But this is a heroic school that sticks to the, you know, it's a good school that sticks to the heroic narrative of, you know, individual artist careers, and so this publication. Another art school very strongly draws, and that has much to do with your narrative of precarity, saying, you know, having different jobs and, you know, not being in a stable job perspective, which of course works very well. So the narrative, as I will recapitulate in a second, with the ministry, that goes like, in the future, we will need people who are prepared to learn new jobs every other year, yeah? So, you know, future perspectives, I don't know, you know, some universities talk like this, very open, which is also a form of romanticizing and justifying precarious structures. So there is a certain necessity and there are certain legitimatory strategies around precarity in artistic institutions, and I think one should be aware of this. Then one small comment on precarity and intersectionality. All of the things that you said are, of course, extremely important. I mean, there are major differences given gender background, nationality, migratory background, etc. However, I'm not so sure if I would agree with Judith Butler, as quoted in the introduction, that, you know, precarity is something that can be addressed in purely intersectional terms. I think precarity is an economic issue and is a class issue, but given your specific backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, gender backgrounds, you are more likely to be part of that class. However, I think there's something that is primary about, or prioritarian about the figure of class when we're speaking about economic precarity. We're speaking about economic precarity, really. Yeah, so I think that's important. Yeah, and now, what can you do, and what are we trying to do? So I think, given these two major narrative strategies that I alluded to from two, major art schools in, northern Central Europe, I would say it is indeed quite important to have an institutional critical narrative in the Academy of Fine Arts. That means to address and to critically discuss the social, historical, institutional conditions that determine what it means to be an artist. Yeah, and then you can say, yeah, quite problematic, but still, fighting windmills, you're still part of that system. Yeah, we're still educating artists and not just, communities, social workers. We're not, building a new, social welfare system, because that's not really what we are appointed for. But at least indirectly we can address it this way. And now, what do we have to do this? Of course, we have many things, and some of them, like these awards, together with the Kunsthalle, that try to support young artists to make it into, the next step, and to find ways into surviving the first crucial years, and then to, make it in the art world. Yeah, that is very important, and indeed it is, I hope, working well to some extent with the mentoring program that has been mentioned in our previous discussion, etc. All the responsibles are here. It's that's something that we're doing. What else are we doing? We're trying to prepare artists with workshops that we also organize together with the IG Bildende Kunst for all these, basic survival strategies, application strategies, Künstlersozialkasse, and all these kinds of things. But this is still, to make it in the realm of precarity. We have social fundings, we have mental health funds, yeah, we have these kinds of things that help surviving. But in the end, our means are also restricted and limited, and we are not, we cannot compensate, yeah, or close the gap that an economic system and the implicit or implied social legacy of the ideal of, the individual heroic artist / author leaves us with. Yeah, so just very briefly, haha, as a beginning.
Sheri, it was quite impressive, those voices that you had in your head. So I was wondering, was this kind of something that you experienced at various stages in your life, and maybe kind of voices that you also managed to deal with in a better way? And how did you manage to tame those voices, or, as you said, be soft to your inner kind of, teacher and
I think the voices will never go away. Those are the voices that I suffer and enjoy the most, because as well, coming from a specific space, working poor, having to kind of guess what it means to be an artist, but I knew that I'm an artist. This is something that I knew maybe the first time that I have drawings in the kindergarten, that this is what I like, colors, shapes, forms. So in order kind of to say that there is possibility somewhere in an utopian imagination that I will get there. I did not know how it looks, I did not know how it tastes, I did not know what is my place in there, but those are the things that I had to kind of, those are the rhythm that I was negotiating with myself. So what would be the most important part? Yes, I am working since forever, and I am creating since forever, and precarity in a way is something, when deciding to continue doing art, is something that I had to embrace. I had to see it, touch it, and especially coming again from a working poor, it's a big decision. It's a big decision that I'm questioning or questioned actually for many years, and I think maybe 7 years I'm not working anymore in non-art related works to support my artistic work. So I love and hate those voices, and I owe them me sitting here and communicating with you. Those voices were encouraging me to work and do not just art, but as well deal with policy making and trying to deconstruct the notion of what it means precarity and the very, very crucial understanding that we're talking about working class. There is working class, and 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 there is working class. And the different conditions and the different perspectives that we sitting here and kind of having an understanding what it means working classes is definitely a much variety of living experiences. So the voices are there and going to stay there, and the Kampf would continue with them.
I mean, one of the things that we learn from working class maybe is this idea of solidarity, you know. So I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned before we started this conversation that you are very much also working in collective spaces and you seek different corporations and you seek mentorships. How does this help you to survive and also to thrive? I think there's then also the idea of thriving, not only surviving.
Me?
Yeah.
Thriving. Like, okay, the mentoring program from academy. There's some people here, but I don't to say it because it's they are here, and but it's a really good thing not to like get out of academy and then fall into this hole and don't know what to do. I don't know. That's like something everybody who finished academy like kind of told me, if I already am in this like black hole, and I said like no, because one thing is of course this great opportunity with the Kunsthalle Prize that somehow really changed also my decision, because I thought okay, I will try to do my diploma after many years studying and working in the academy, not working in the academy but like working besides. So the prize and this exhibition opened somehow like a new world that was new to me, because it's I don't know how institutions and everything work, but you get a lot of attention, and that was new. And attention is good for if you apply for fundings for anything, because people, it's easier. I don't have to explain it to you. So that is one thing, that you are not somehow like lost after academy. What I miss is like the class meetings and like the colleagues that I don't know, saw like every week, because that's something really nice actually to meet and talk about your work. That's also something very special about I think art schools, that you, because I also studied in the main university, and there also the Betreuungsschlüssel, like there's way more students, way less teachers, I guess way less money for teachers to or to have more teachers for the students, but that's one thing I really appreciated in the art school, is like this talking about work, talking about you, and you can bring in this class, if you feel well, everything what you want and what you also don't want. But it's a very like for me that was a very new thing, to be able to speak in the class about my interests, my work, and not just like this other work you have to do to earn money, but like your interests and your where you want to go through, and yeah, the question about collective, or
because Johan said, you know, there's this idea of this is the genius individual artist, and what you mentioned was like, you know, we're very much working in collectives and in shared spaces, and we seek that also to create resonance and to have feedback on our work and to develop. So I was kind of asking that?
Yeah, I mean, I come a bit also more from the film side and not from like fine arts, or like I have more experience in film and movie making, probably like in this direction, where also this question of authorship, I just mentioned it quickly, but I don't know, like a film is never made by just one person, and in the end you often see like the director or like the actors, but I'm just not interested in this like one person show, so I appreciate working in collectives and get out of, like I don't know, it's just natural somehow to me, but I think I still haven't answered your question, but probably it's, probably I just understood it wrong.
So, Shin, maybe put it otherwise, what does Austria have to do to keep you here as an artist working here with the Austrian people? What is there to do? You know, I mean, you're always in this position of you have to beg something, but actually I think we should frame it maybe otherwise and ask, you know, Austria has to also make sure that talent that are qualified here with a lot of public resources don't just have to leave the country, but to maintain this talent and to value it and to maybe also, I mean, depending on how you position yourself as an artist, but maybe also to kind of use it or share it with different communities. What would have to change that you can actually, you know, feel welcome here? There are many things probably, but just...
I mean, just be normal human being here. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, it's just let me be normal human being, basically, to live here. But now it's not. Now I'm like, someone is here, but not really here still, and so much struggle just try to keep myself in one place. Like, yeah, if Austria can do such a thing, I support artists, foreign artists will be great, but I don't know how to ask who and how to ask for. Like, I've been in this shithole for so long, I don't know.
I mean, freedom of movement is definitely possible as well in Austria.
Okay.
They manage in European Union, they can just open it. There is possibilities.
Yeah, I think, sorry to jump in, but one thing is like to make a difference in the election program, like who is able to participate in political elections in Austria. It's like in Vienna, I think it's really 30% of people who live here are not allowed to vote. 40. And we know who's the party who doesn't want to change it. So that's a very calculative thing, and I really hate that. And I come from the countryside, so I sometimes go there, so I know like those opinions, and then it's different than in the city, and I try to deal with it, but it's really hard, and I don't have a solution, and I'm just, I'm always ashamed of that. I think it's also, of course, in other countries like this, that the election system is not super great, but I think that's one big thing that has to be, I mean, there's this election, like they always do with people who are not allowed, and then, there's something about this in the media, but it's like nobody on the countryside knows about that, and is also not interested because a lot of people don't want things to change. That's also one problem.
So at one point we have to talk about the fair pay process. Sheri. Today, the ministry, obviously, they issued a fair pay code of conduct kind of paper, fairness codex, exactly. And you've been in this process from the very beginning. You've been part of the negotiations with the IG. What is your view on the codex and on the process and on the prospects also of this leading to fairer conditions?
I'm a radical optimist, and I think I like to take that huge step as a result, maybe, or as a positive result, one of the minimal results of COVID, of the pandemic, of EGs coming together and meeting very regularly with different Beamtinnen from different Bundesländer in Austria, and trying to think how we would like not to get to the place where we are today in the future. It was a very long process, it was very detailed, and I have to admit, from coming from more activist side, I was surprised of the engagement, on the persistence and preciseness of every word, and I got a new view of how bureaucracy is just unbelievable. Until then, I was just from EMA 35, that's Amt for Migration. That was my only place of direct contact with Beamtinnen, and obviously I had a specific image of bureaucracy and how it is very much so clear, created in order to make Hindernisse, to create obstacles on the process. So in the Fairness Codex, that it's divided to a couple of parts, communicating very shortly on what we would like to have in art and culture: transparency, Vertrauen, Machtmissbrauch is another position that is open because of this process. Diversity, sustainability, all these kind of terminologies that we were long, and I learned a lot, and I really much appreciated of the step. I don't think as in any work that I do, there is no we arrived somewhere. It's just always a constant beginning. It's a constant beginning in order to come closer, to understand each other, and then question ourselves, criticize ourselves in order to move forward, because we are changing, the landscape is changing, people that are living here are changing, the needs, the economical, the precarity is being defined differently. So another step to, as I call it, a very much performative act of people that were working together very intimately during the COVID, of negotiating, of funds, of possibilities, coming together with some kind of a positive result. Momentan positive result, because it's, again, in a constant, hopefully would be in a constant of negotiating.
Has the Academy also been involved in this process? What is your view on it?
Generally, yes, not specifically. Our Vice Rector, Ingeborg Erhardt, who's been involved in representing artists' interests in similar institutions as you, is very strongly representative of such debates, and she was part of the committee. Okay. In the beginning, yes, but not as member of the Academy, strictly speaking. Yeah. So I would say the discourse is very present. We're fully aware of it. We're doing our part as good as we can, but. And we prepare, with common workshops, etc., transparency policies concerning the need for contracts in exhibition context, etc. But yeah, that's as far as it goes. Yeah.
And is it actually part of the curriculum to learn about these things, like, how to make a contract and how to negotiate your salary and, how to value your work also appropriately?
Not enough, yeah. So I have to. If Anna Spanlang wouldn't be here, I would say yes, of course, but she could contradict me.
Yeah, no, but there's actually.
But we're working on it really, and there's more and more. We have not only these common things with the IG Bildende Kunst, but we also have a program that is called Postgrad Life, which prepares students, and partly this has been in combination. It has to be improved, but we're working on it. And the Alumni Verein is also working on it, that's true, yes.
Yeah, if I can add something quickly, because I don't know if you learned in school about like taxes and insurance, but like a lot of people after school still think, and I think I was the same, although I had BWL, that taxes and insurance is like the same, or like I didn't know really the difference. So even though I was in a wirtschaftliche Schule where we learned about this, probably nobody after Matura really was like able to, okay, you have to pay from your income, you have to pay a certain amount of taxes and you have to get your insurance and do that. So the school and does not, or the Austrian school system, as far as I know, does not, is not in, or I read it as it's not interested in having pupils coming out that they know about their rights. I'm not sure if it's not a Verschwörungsthing, but sometimes I think it's easier for the politicians to have people in their country who are not super educated to know about everything. I have many examples, but it's not good for the people.
But just one last thought on this, because there's a strong voice of the students to increase such education, and on the level of the rectorate, we support this in principle. We might not be able to implement it as quickly as we might want to or so, but it's interesting to look at the inner institutional structure. And now please censor the part that I'm going to say now, because you never know who's going to hear it, so I will never have said this. On the level of the artist professors, there's not such strong a need and such a strong desire to implement this in the curriculum. And I think this partly is, and I'm not blaming anyone, I'm just speaking about the necessity of certain social positions within an institutional framework, because if you've made it in the art world, become a professor, be an exhibiting artist, you somehow also participate on the myths around your profession and the intransparencies. Yeah, you would never say, I made it because I had good networks and I knew how to implement my interests. You made it because you were a genius. Yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't discussed the impact of COVID yet, so maybe since you also as IG, you've been very much involved in this consultancy and service, and for artists who really struggled with, venues being shut and no space to actually sell their works and having to sustain a living or fill their fridges, what kind of things have you experienced? I think they were worried, but how did you deal with this situation, and what were the kind of the common issues around these things?
First of all, I'm a board member, and means that I have, or in the year we have a team of MitarbeiterInnen that they were the shield. As you know, Vorstands are ehrenamtlich, means that we're meeting not regularly and not definitely answering the phone, because if I would answer the phone, I would cry together with the people that were calling, because I am a too softy. But yes, our 3 MitarbeiterInnen were exhausted in ways that it's really hard to imagine the phone calls that we received. I'm in part of the Curie-Mitglied of Künstlerische Sozialversicherungsfonds, and it was hard enough just to read, not to experience them physically, and in most of the time telephone. But I think everywhere it was, in every field it was like I did have a luck that I was engaged in a university. I was teaching at that time, means that my financials was quite covered, but the student life and the MitgliederInnen were, I don't want to share because this is, I don't know, sadness, poverty, but it was our MitarbeiterInnen, we managed to have much more often supervision and one-to-one consulting in order to be able to maintain and still run after the newly described laws and regulation, because there was like constantly things that are falling on you and you have to understand and create translate the information. I think that's a problem. Everything has to be very translated, because bureaucracy, in the bureaucracy language, is a very complex one, and as well, if you go through a process of getting a font, hard, soft, or whatever font, then in the last moment you realize that one dot in your application is not correct, so 3 months of work are gone in these conditions. So, but ending in a positive, these create the very tight work with the Ministry of Art and Culture and in Arbeitskammer, and created a strong trust, because the exchange of knowledge verbally on the phone was much faster than writing and reading. So, yeah.
Just 2 sentences. I mentioned the mental health fund before, which is very important at this point. I suppose, given the 4 major global crises that we're facing: economic, ecological, the pandemic, and of course the geopolitical crisis, enough reasons to collapse. But in the applications for support, most would mention the COVID situation as that which brought them to a limit.
So maybe also asking you, because Anne shared a conversation that you had with her previously, where you also talked about how the COVID situation affected you in your work life and your personal life. It's up to you which kind of road you want to share with us, but maybe just a few words on how it was for you and what you experienced.
You mean during the COVID?
Yeah.
I think everyone were so frustrated because to have an artist as a professional is also a lot about socializing and go to different places, exhibition, to meet people, to make social network. And that was totally impossible for 2 years almost. So you just see a lot of people just depressed and try to keep producing things, but have nowhere to go. And the international scene also pretty cut off because the whole travel ban. So it was just super tough. Like, I feel we lost a lot of opportunity, especially for people around our age. Like, it's an important time for us to build a network, and that was impossible. Yeah.
Okay, I tried to find something positive about it. No, but of course, depressing and everything. I just moved to another place at this time, and everything was super weird. Of course, we remember the beginnings of the lockdowns, and I also postponed my diploma because I thought I cannot just continue as I thought, because nobody knew what's going to happen. Is the word, I don't know, doing whatever. But like, I remember also like meeting people like after some month when the funding system somehow worked and artists got supported, and it was not like, at least for me, I remember it was not super superficial to apply for this artist fund. It was somehow in a way, of course, but I speak German, so I'm used to this bureaucracy thing, to apply for it and also to get money at a certain amount of time. And I met people who also got this money, and they were like, okay, it's the first time in their life that they know for the next 3 months they will have some kind of income, although it's not like super much, but there was a certain income, so they were actually freer in working because they knew next month and the next month after I get like 1,000 euros or 800 or 500, and I can somehow plan, and that's something I always could because I had some side jobs, but as an artist, I don't know how that will happen, because you go from exhibition to exhibition, you hope that somebody's buying your work. If you have a gallery, you're already more like in a system or like more institutions who support you. But yeah, yeah.
So if I get you correctly, it was also kind of a relief from this constant pressure to produce and to also do different jobs, because you had this kind of, well, funding available for a certain period of time.
I still continued somehow working, because the jobs that I work are, I don't know, they are all parallel and they don't, I mean, yeah, shootings were postponed, but it was some kind of a relief, and also for a lot of people that I met, like, I did not ask them, but like 3-4 people at the same time almost told me that they are happy they get funding because now they can work a bit free, and that was new to me, like to see it in this perspective, like the bedingungsloses Grundeinkommen. There's like huge discussions about it for years, and I guess we're not gonna live when that is going to happen, but sorry, I'm like so negative.
They fought it up, so they're not going to do that again.
I don't know, like with, yeah.
Yeah, there was this Volksbegehren, I guess, but is it still going on? I'm not, because I cannot sign these things as, again, we have this problem. So
yeah, only as an Austrian citizen you can sign the Volksbegehren.
Yeah.
Of course, that's how the politics are made. I mean,
yeah, I just share them with my Schwiegerleute and everyone to pressure them.
So I was the only person here that could sign that all of this. Okay.
Thank you for signing it. Thank you. So maybe it's now time to open up the discussion with our audience. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question or share experience or just to give a statement?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was very interesting and insightful. I just wanted to, like, relate it to what you said about also the differences also between people coming from European Union and people coming from non-European countries. In the exhibition, we have 8 artists. 3 are coming from non-European countries. It's Annie Gorashvili, it's Tsao, and Cho Beom-seok. And 2 of them stayed, but Beom-seok had to leave actually the country and to go back to South Korea because he had no income and he had also no possibility actually to find a job, so he couldn't also not come to install the exhibition. So it was like just to have like the picture. It's actually symptomatic of what we're discussing all together. My question would be kind of like addressed actually to the 3 artists here in the panel discussion, and it would be more about like a mid-term structural help or support that could be actually provided by art institution, like a public institution like Kunsthalle Vienna. Because I mean, it's schön und gut, this thing. I think it's important. I'm also very proud to do the Preis der Kunsthalle Wien, but still it's a one-time shot. And it's also kind of like, when it's finished. Apart from the problem or from this difference that is still made between the first prize, the first winners who get this 3,000 euro prize, and the other one who gets a honorary fee, a very little one, but nothing in terms of money prize. This is another question, but in a mid-term way, what could an institution do?
Anyone wants to pick up on Anne's question?
Make artist fee higher. Seriously.
The artist fee were kind of like really, it's transparent, so it's a little bit a shame, and we will increase it for the next edition. It was 450 euros, honorary fee, and then there were, of course, production, which is related but not the same. I'm aware of that, but there was, of course, like production for a new production or for installation of the artwork, and I'm aware about the fact that it's nothing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's so untypical for Austria.
Yes.
In Austria, never people say out numbers or honorary
People,
fees.
maybe people never see numbers, but yeah.
Maybe we will have to censor it in the recording, I don't know, but okay.
Did you censor the number? Like we cannot say the number.
It's a joke.
For my
Very low. It's not 70s anymore.
So from my experience, what I was missing, but luckily I was as well finding ways to receive it from different teachers that I was taking classes. They were staying still in contact. I really have I had the luck to have around me friends, colleagues that supported as well my beginning and showed me the way despite my stubbornness and thinking that I know everything already. But creating communities, creating spaces to come together and exchange the everyday life working struggles, creating events or a small, those things should not take so much resources, just sitting in a podium and talking about why did I decide to have this picture, or why a budget look like it looks like, or what it means for me to be an artist, a woman artist, a migrant in the 20th district. It could be whatever reason that we're starting a conversation and collecting, and of course, as we as well talked before we started the evening, food is essential. What we're doing as well in die Gebildende Kunst, I feel like a little bit doing commercial, but it's not, it's just sharing knowledge. Before pandemic and after pandemic, who knows when it's going to be. We as well doing this kind of Frühstückgespräch, not only survival training that is communicating about insurance, funds in order to support the insurance application and so weiter, but as well coming together, eating breakfast together and throwing topics on the table and trying to think, to see from the experts that were invited, lawyers, artists, galleries, coming in with artists obviously, and having casual exchange, because I think that's what we all missing, to be part of a community in this new liberal capitalistic society. We need to come together in order to feel good. So that would be my answer.
I think it's an important thing also to see the role of an institution, not only or exhibition-making house, as the Kunsthalle Vienna is, not only to do things that are actually presented to an audience, that have public representation moment, but as you say, also like this more casual, invisible moment of gathering or discussing things in the sense of a production of knowledge, perhaps also alternative knowledge and not always a dominant knowledge production, but also I think what could be a nice idea is also to share the resources, because we have like kind of like crazy resources here, and to do it like to find ways to, I don't know, have the studio or the as rehearsal spaces for some. So this is something, of course, like we are thinking about, but just to kind of like, it's not to justify the very low honorary fee, but it's, I wanted to say, still like during the exhibition or within the exhibition, we organized several events, and these events and the participation or the contribution by the artists were paid, all of them. So it's not like 450 euro for participating to the exhibition and doing all the rest. It was for their contribution, and then each time the artists contributing were paid according a scala. I will not disclose now.
Maybe something that I keep asking myself, it's not only in the fine arts but also in other fields, why is the production process so much separated from the exhibition process? Why aren't the two things more fluid, so it would also enable viewers, audiences to actually see that it's not this genius, you know, coming up with this idea overnight, but there's actually hard work going in it and whatever. It mustn't be the case for like 24 hours, but having some spaces that are partially public for certain hours, and then also, you know, have different kind of moments of where you can view the process and then the product, and not, you know, separate the process and the product.
But these are, of course, like insurance issues for that. You cannot just like welcome an audience in a set-up installation, but we actually do that, and this is something that the education department is doing with classes, with students, but also with other, with a broader audience, giving the possibilities to have insight during setups and to discuss or to have conversation with different positions within the institution.
I think in capitalistic ways now, because we talk about money, but like what you also said, like community, and like after like having this experience of having this exhibition together, I don't know, somehow probably still try to stay connected through. I mean, we were able to organize workshops or like tours or something during the exhibition, and but it will end in 10 days, so then this is over. And I don't know, probably there is possibilities for future shows where either we, like if artists or like also not just the artists from here, probably artists from Academy or Angewandte are interested in organizing things here, because of course the Kunsthalle as a name is something that people recognize and that leads, or it's easier than to talk about and like also, yeah, you know what I mean. So like to use the resources, and also I think the shop, because we have these objects that we made, I think nothing.
Anyone buy that?
Did somebody buy something?
I don't think so.
You have the chance today.
Chin's 3 CDs
Oh, really?
were
Great.
bought.
I think I bought someone to buy one, so I was like only 2.
But that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Perhaps you can tell a bit about the concept, so the audience can.
So we made a table, and all the 8 of us were asked to produce one thing extra, or like an artistic object to sell. So we could say a price, and it's still there, and you can buy it. It's how many CDs are left? What's the edition?
I think only 20, so it's still 17.
So
Still a long way to go.
get one each.
I don't know, but the Academy, for example, is doing those auctions. They are mostly for some benefit of like a caritative thing, but also for like students. I don't know, to do like to use it as to use the space basically, because of course we can do things in our studios and we can do things in our flats, but yeah, with like a space like at Museumsquartier, which is very central in the city, that would be cool, I think. Probably there's already things that I didn't know about, but yeah, to use the space, yeah, and the people who work here to have like a team stuff going on.
I mean, there are things like that, like the shop is a shop is a shop was actually a cooperation with Angewandte. Yes. It was Tsao inviting his students to actually completely metamorphose the shop in a shop, which was a kind of like very special shop with artworks by different artists / students. This is one part actually of the new formula of the prize, what you were talking about also, about like having or this is my wish that it will occur actually, that we are constituting kind of like alumni thing, that like the people, artists who got the prize, they have the possibility for the next prize or in the next years to do something, we have to figure out actually in which form it will take, but this is really my wish.
Bar.
and I hope the 8 of you will help me.
Yes.
So it's 8:30 already. Are there any final pressing issues that have to be mentioned from anyone before we hit out? It's a Friday night.
I'm really happy no one fall asleep, so I think like it's good enough for tonight.
Okay, so maybe Anne, you want to say?
I would like to really deeply thank you. Thanks a lot for this interesting conversation. Thanks a lot to all of you for your patience and for your how do you say, for coming here. Very simply, the exhibition is running until the 23rd, the 23rd. So 23rd of May, it's a Sunday, so it's yeah. And we will have a finissage on the Saturday, the 21st, sorry, okay, reshuffle. On the 21st of May, we will have the finissage of Handspells with a very tiny little cozy program, guided tour, and then a performance by Diana Babozachil, and then a lecture performance by Anna, some drinks, some food, and then, yeah, we will close this show. Thank you very much.